Hi there, Maxim Luft here, and I'm quite happy to present the very first volume of Organic Voices Solo Opera. In this walkthrough, I'll basically show how it sounds like directly out of the box, then the interface, how it works, and all the different patches that come with the library. So I'd like to start by playing a track of mine back, and I'll show and explain the different controllers I used and how the entire library works. So I'd say here we go. Okay, so this is actually the result you get like nearly when you open up the very first the first patch. So it's intended to be a very playable library. So I think speed by velocity is deactivated by default, and so we try to sample a very kind of emotional legato. So this is like the mix you get like directly out of the box, and with some convolution too. Like I'll deactivate it, so you may also hear what it sounds like without any effects. Okay, so like when you start with it, the way you're triggering the first note is going to you're going to have either a slow or a fast attack, like depending on how hard you play on the keyboard. Like if I play kind of very lightly like this, you know, it's kind of a very slow attack into that note. But if I play kind of hard, well, you hear the difference. Then also, like during that one track, I think there is one passage where it's yeah, like here, I think here that you get that kind of same note repetition sample. And I think this is a quite useful thing to have. So if I play it back like only this one, and I think this is a pretty useful thing to have. And this, of course, applies to each note, so you may do it like you want. So the mix consists here of the closed mics and main stereo. They are also the surrounds, but I purged them here. Each mic position has a very special character to it. So, like for example, if you have only the closed ones, okay, then the main stereos, which have much more depth, I would say. Okay, and the surrounds, which capture much more of the ambience of the room. Okay, but I purge them like by default. I mean, unless I'm working in a surround environment, I prefer to not to use them. Then legato, you might deactivate it also, so these are buttons actually. So this would be like switching to the sustain mode, but I'll keep it on. Speed bar velocity, so this is in order to control the way your legato samples behave. So if you're activating it, you're going to have and play kind of hard on the keyboard. It's going to shorten the transition actually. And if I play lighter, harder, and this last one was lighter. Instant legato is there if you know that your two first notes are going to be like kind of very fast, and you play the first note at the maximum velocity, 127. It's going to ignore that in order to avoid that kind of cross-fading thing, which is always a bit tricky with legato instruments. So, for example, okay, velocity 127, it ignores the first note and it goes directly to the second one. Okay. So yeah, range extension is there in order to, well, we sampled each semitone actually until G sharp, and it was quite difficult. But you may also create an artificial A and A sharp here, the very high notes. I think normally it's activated, yeah. You might also do more than two, like with the custom patch number 2 here. But then I think that, like, to me, it sounds a bit synthy if you do like with more than 2. So yeah, so you might be doing so. Release tails is controlled by MIDI CC 116. It's the only CC which is kind of already, let's say, reserved, or it's the only controller which is like really assigned to something. So okay, so with release tails at 100%, it has something like this, This controls the volume of the release samples. Oops. And if I put it at 0%, well, you know what I mean. It's it sounds a bit synthy. So basically, this is like just there. Normally, if you find it a bit too loud, you might lower this the release samples. Convolution is a preset. Built-in preset I set there up, and which I find quite cool. I'll use them. I'll use it for my own projects, like the very same preset. And I think it really opens up the room, so I do use it. Round robins here, well, this doesn't really apply here, but you might activate it, and basically it creates some round robins from the because as we sampled each semitone, there it creates some artificial round robins via the neighbor zones. So, well, if you're using that here, there's the round robin reset button, but there's also an option to do that with a key. So it acts like the round robin reset button, basically. Okay, and you might also, this is also going to be the same thing with our coming instruments. You might learn the reset key and assign it somewhere else. If you're working with some reset keys, might be useful. So patch number 2, same mix actually. So just the thing is, you have like a bit more control over the way the legatos behave, like under the hood. It's to have a bit more control. So velocity speed is only working when this option in here is activated. So it makes it like quicker or also slower than the default value, which is normally here on the first patch at 100%. But here you might change it, so it's going to be a bit faster. Like if I play really hard. As you can hear, it really you nearly don't hear at all the transition. And if I put it at 0%, it's like as if it would be deactivated. Yeah, and 200% again. Just to compare. Legato offset is like a kind of constant value. If you'd like to have like more or less of the transition, you might come back to the... So you have a bit more, a kind of a lag, but you might also... So here spit by velocity is deactivated, but as the offset value is kind of high, well, you don't hear that much from the legatos. So okay, that's patch number 2. Patch number 3 is a multi where the advantage is that you can save the output presets, and here the closed mics are assigned to a dry channel. So here like this, if you click on the mic positions and the main stereo and surrounds, if they would be activated, they go through that one channel which has exactly the same convolution preset. So basically it's just in order to have a more, like, I'd say, a cleaner signal, a cleaner mix, as your closed mics keep being, I'd say, very close, so nearly no reverberation at all, no reverb. But the main mics, they do give that kind of depth and roomness to the sound, so I do prefer it. Well, it's a very subtle. It's not such a big difference to those patches where, because like there, if you activate the convolution here, it applies to each mic position. And I find that things start to become a bit messy if the closed mic have some convolution on them, and all the other mics too. So well, I prefer to have it like this, so only the mains and surrounds if I work in a surround environment. But in stereo, I prefer to have it just like this. It saves a bit more memory, so I like it like that. Okay, and then patch number 4 is a kind of cluster builder, so I'm just deactivating these. A kind of cluster builder which, well, you might, this is your bass note, like here on the bottom, and you might play kind of naturally with it. But if you unmute some other notes here, it's going to play the corresponding note, like an interval higher here, for example. And so basically you are playing just chords or clusters, and then when you play the second note, it's going to trigger this legato sample where all your notes are going then to that one specific note. So basically, let's say here we have a medium G. This is going to be A sharp. Here's G sharp. Then here it's going to be A sharp, H, and on top we are going to have G, the higher G, 1 octave higher. So basically there, be careful, it's going to be like a kind of mega cluster. They are all unmuted, and then the second note is like that, just so they all go to that note. And normally I used to do that like with portamento instruments, but that's to make you familiar with that kind of concept, which I do find kind of interesting, really. Okay, and you might play around with it. I find it quite cool. It's as you want. I mean, it's also my idea is really with those instruments and libraries to give a kind of to give some inspiration. So I hope this might be kind of interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye bye.